Hey there, everybody. Franklin Taggart here. It is time for a virtual coffee break. I've got my coffee. Grab your beverage and let's chat for just a minute. There's been a couple of things that have been mulling through for me today, and one of them is just how I think how we understand life and the world and what's happening at any given time. I've been interested in mindset and thought and the power of thinking and the power of imagination and the extraordinary human ability to be creative. And I use the word creative there rather than artistic because I think that everyone has the ability to be creative. That's kind of inherent in our architecture. But the artistic piece is, I think, again, a talent that people develop, and they may have an aptitude for it. But the artistic creativity is one small sliver of the creative realm. And so I've been interested in the power of thought, the power of imagination, the power of mindset for quite a long time now. And I remember reading things like Your Erroneous Zones was one of the books that I remember from a long time ago. And I think, was that a Dyer book? Was that a Wayne Dyer book? Gosh, it's been since like 1989 since I read that one. But mindset has been something that has fascinated me for a very long time. And there are a couple of things that I would look at as times when I have really been deeply affected by a shift in my own perception or my own understanding. And so I'm going to just give you an example of one of those shifts that has made a huge difference in the way that I experienced life. For the longest time, I felt like life was something that was happening to me. I felt like that I was kind of at the whim of whatever forces were out there, whatever gods and goddesses were at work, and whatever forces of nature were happening. Now, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on naturally, and I think we're all affected by that. But if I go through life with the idea that life is happening to me, I start to feel powerless. I start to feel like I really don't have a choice about how things happen, about how things show up, about how I show up within the world. And that to me was, for many years, I had a pretty strong streak of victimhood in the way that I felt about life and about myself. I felt like that I was just being kind of tossed around by the wind and the waves. And part of that was also manifested in the habit of letting other people make decisions for me when I really should have been making them for myself. Like always kind of pushing the decision about, hey, where do we eat? It's always the other person's choice over mine. It manifested itself, I remember, all the way back to some of the earliest times when I had crushes on people. And I found out that a friend of mine had a crush on the same person. And I thought my friend should have that opportunity or for that relationship before I should. And it was really weird that I perceived myself that way. But there was this long streak of understanding or thinking that life was happening to me. Then there's another kind of mindset shift that happened for me, that life was happening through me. And that mindset was manifested in really trying to, discover my own power and my own potential and living into that as much as I could. Now, this really came into full force for me. I went through a divorce when I was 33. And for the next 10 years, I really went through that whole process of discovering my own kind of gifts and my own talents and my own power and my own ability to choose for myself, my own ability to, to happen in the world. And at that time, it felt like life was happening through me. It felt like that I had a lot of choice, a lot of kind of leverage, a lot of ability to make things happen and to manifest things. Well, one of the things that started to happen was that I reached a point, particularly in close primary relationships, where I was extraordinarily frustrated and brokenhearted, and I had been fixated on that for a long time. I kind of wanted another person to come into my life and fill all the blanks. I wanted that person to kind of, make me so complete that I never had to go seeking again. And again, those kinds of fixations tend to be spiritual in nature, in that we're trying to find something in the world to fill a hole that they can't actually fill. It's just not naturally possible. And I think that when we get to those kinds of levels of frustration, there's also another transformation that happens when those fixations get broken up. Like I said, I was fixated on this idea that love was going to make my life complete. That this romantic love that's out there that we see in the movies and on TV shows and in romance novels and all that kind of stuff, I had this sense that that's what I needed to find in order for my life to be okay. And the hardest part about that was that I was not able to make real clear choices for myself in that situation. It was either me feeling like I wasn't interested in the other person, or it was them saying that they weren't interested in me. But in either situation, it was painful. It was difficult. And finally, I was in the company of a spiritual teacher at that time. And I don't know what happened. The spiritual teacher never actually addressed that issue directly with me. But one of the things that started to happen around me as I was engaged in that spiritual discipline and that spiritual relationship, one of the things that started to happen was that fixation started to loosen. And one day, that fixation went away, and it went away when I asked myself the question, what if this love that I believe is out there and that I've been looking for so many years and that I've not been able to find, what if it doesn't exist as a possibility? And when I asked that question, it was like somebody had hit me in the head with a board. And I thought, oh my gosh, what if that doesn't even exist? And all of these years I've been looking for something that I can't and won't ever find. And when that fixation dissolved, a really interesting thing happened. First of all, it took me a few days to start to I can't even say that I was feeling normal after a few days, but it took me a few days to get used to this new feeling. But the feeling that happened in that situation and the perception that I had in that situation was that life was happening in me. Now, think about the progression. Early in my life, it felt like life was happening to me. I felt like a victim much of the time of life. And if the good things came my way, I was always kind of looking out the side of my eye, waiting for the shoe to drop, and waiting for the good times to go away quickly and harshly. And then there were those times when I experimented with my own power and found my own talents and my own gifts and my own preferences and my own way of doing things. And life was happening through me. I felt like that I was actually able to influence the direction of my own life. But when life started to feel like that it was happening in me, all of a sudden, everything changed. And the way that mindset is manifested is that I still get, I still get wrapped around the axle about things. I still have my monthly money periods where I go, into a tizzy about how much money's in the bank account and rent's next week. Yeah, I still go through those things. But the thing that's really interesting is that what I understand is that the process that's going on is that my experience of life is all within my being, and I am creating that experience moment by moment by moment. And sometimes it's intentionally paying attention to a specific way of thinking or a specific perception. But the thing that's really interesting is that now I am free to experience all of life, and I'm not trying to push any experience away, and I'm not trying to avert or avoid anything. And so just that one shift of coming out of life is happening to me or through me, now life is happening in me, all of a sudden it's a completely different set of experiences. So those are my thoughts on mindset. It's like I've got hundreds of more, and I could probably make a whole YouTube channel just about that. But I wanted to share that with you because that keeps coming up for me today, as I've been working with some folks that have been really struggling with fixations. They've been like really, really deeply fixated on patterns and difficulties that keep coming up for them over and over and over again. And one of the things that I'm hoping that they will be able to reach for themselves sometime soon is that place of surrender where they say, all of a sudden, I wonder if this thing that I have been fixated on is really real. Is it really true? Is it really possible? Because on the other side of that question, there's a whole new level of perception that's waiting. So a little bit more esoteric than usual. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. And I'll be back again tomorrow with another coffee break. So long.